Despite its long history, the horror movie genre has really never been completely respected, especially by the Academy. Which Academy, I hear you ask? This Academy. But in the early 1990s, somehow the Academy was like, oh yeah, horror movies, they exist, and they can be really good. And one of the best examples of this is from 1991. It's the movie that got Anthony Hopkins as Oscar and Jodie Foster an Oscar as well. It's The Silence of the Lambs. While the 1990s saw a creative renaissance for horror, it was the 1990s that saw them get the critical praise that some of these movies ever so deserved. And there's no better example of that than 1991's Silence of the Lambs, which won Best Picture at the Oscars that year. Based on the novel of the same name written by Thomas Harris, the movie tells the story of Clarice Starling, played by Jodie Foster, a prospering FBI agent who is asked to look into the case of a serial killer known only as Buffalo Bill. But in order to get into the mind of a serial killer, she needs to access the mind of a serial killer that the FBI has already thwarted. Enter Dr. Hannibal Lecter, played by Anthony Hopkins. Of course, this movie is rather famous for Hopkins' performance, and I can't lie, this performance is incredible. Hopkins only has a handful of scenes, but just due to his look, his charisma, and just a presence about him that sends chill bumps all up and down your body, he absolutely makes it work. One of the best scenes in the entire movie is, well, one of the most famous ones, where Starling and Lecter meet for the very first time. Starling has no idea what she's walking into, and when she sees Lecter just standing in the middle of his cell as if he was waiting for her to show up, it's unsettling. Lecter's the type of guy who is perpetually on top of things. You may not know how or why, but even when you think he is in like a 6x8 cell and he can't really go anywhere, he's playing chess while the rest of us are playing checkers. And I think it could be argued that The Silence of the Lambs is less a horror movie with a slasher, something like Freddy or Jason, but something more along the lines of the human monster, kind of like Psycho. Buffalo Bill in this movie is played by Ted Levine, who I've always known as General Bloodbath McGrath from the disaster piece Wild Wild West. Bloodbath McGrath, the butcher of New Liberty. He's just as demented as Lecter is, only his is a far more chaotic evil. The Silence of the Lambs, on the whole, is one of those movies that I would pay any amount of money to watch at its premiere or when it was in theaters for its initial run, just to see how the people would react to some of the weird stuff that happens. Because this isn't a traditional horror movie in the sense that someone's gonna go out and yell boo. This is a psychological horror movie. And in a weird roundabout way, it kind of predicted the more psychological horror movies that we would see in the coming decades. And I think on the whole, The Silence of the Lambs is one of those horror movies that has gotten better as time goes on, if that can be possible. If you haven't seen it, go out of your way and watch it. Oh, and it's best to watch it with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.